Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honor the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Michael Stewart, who has over 29 years in the mining and construction industry and more than 15 years in leadership roles, from supervisor to project manager. Michael has led teams on sites and projects ranging from $1 million to $32 billion. He specializes in building high-performing teams in remote, high-pressure environments. And his passion lies in mentoring leaders to create strong culture, trust, and accountability where safety, reliability, and productivity thrive. Michael's approach consistently delivers outstanding business results and cultivates a reputation that attracts top-tier clients and long-term revenue, helping to position teams as the go-to experts in their field, all while accelerating someone's career and reputation in their chosen field. Welcome. We have got an ex-work colleague of mine here now, which I'm really honoured to have as part of this. So, Michael, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks. It's actually great to be here. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So what we might do is just start off and, tell us a little bit about how long you've been working in the industry, what's your current role in the industry, and maybe share how you actually got started as well.
Okay, so pretty much closing in on 30 years in the industry myself. I started in the construction industry straight out of school into an apprenticeship, which was stone masonry of all things.
Wow.
Then I spent 10 years in the residential and the commercial space of construction, and before I went into the industrial side of things. So as soon as I got into that, raced up through the ranks there, I guess, through having a good family and good leaders and mentors in my earlier career. And now, as I am pushing on to the 30th year, I'm sort of been sitting in a project manager role for the last couple of years in my early 40s.
Yeah, nice. So tell me about, I know you've worked on some pretty iconic projects and stuff, and maybe share a little bit about with project management, like what sort of stuff you're actually project management and some of the iconic projects that you've worked on as well, and what sort of parts of the industry you've worked in.
Yeah, right. So I spent a lot of time in resources over in Western Australia, obviously through the iron ore phase there,
Mm.
back into Queensland with APLNG with yourself in Gladstone there with the oil and gas, bauxite resources up in Amrun, so in Weipa there. So yeah, major oil and gas projects that we've had in Australia over the last 10 to 15 years. I've been involved with them in major roles, I guess, under the likes of Bechtel and Chevron. So that's been pretty exciting to step into some major high pressure roles, I guess, there. But I took them on as an opportunity. Probably the latest one back at home in Townsville, I got to be involved in putting the roof on the North Queensland Cowboys Stadium here. High
Awesome.
pressure roles because we had Elton John coming, so we had
Oh,
to get it done on time. But yeah, some pretty iconic projects all around Australia, and then I've had the opportunity to go into China at one stage to do some constructability reports and assessments on items that were getting constructed over there or fabricated and bringing to site in Australia to make sure that they were going to be, effective in being assembled.
yeah. So is that more from like a quality perspective as well, or?
I was on the ground on that project as a superintendent, so it was just sort of I was tasked by the project manager and construction manager in there. So everything was coming over by heavy lift vessel from China. So I was just
Okay.
making sure that because we had pretty big time constraints, we had a lot of weather, bad weather. It was just
Mm.
really around having things either fully welded out when they had them there, whether we had lifting lugs on them, so we reduced manual handling, whether we had temporary works engineered to put in there so that we could access it straight away and we didn't have
Mm.
scaffold we built at height. So there was a big thing on that project called Walk to Work. So we had millions and millions of dollars worth of temporary works in that space there. So just had to go over and make sure that, yeah, once the heavy lift vessel dropped it into the water, we had access just to be crane lifting things straight into place, and we could have crews working on them within the next day or two. So it was around that constructability.
Yeah, awesome. So, what's some sort of things that you saw like from that with being in China and stuff as well? Like you would have been on the ground seeing how things were being constructed, so that would have been an eye opener.
Definitely a larger gap in our safety.
Yeah, okay.
Those sort of things there from Australia. I always heard that it was not overly safe and as good as Australia's standards, I guess you'll put it. Obviously, cheaper, labour's cheaper over there, sort of things. And
Mm.
we have come a long way in that space there that we do transfer our standards over there, and we have our own expats that run those sort of things. But just for instance, me being in a crane and rigging background, guys turning up in their going out shoes and slacks, turning up in a crane, doing a dual lift, and straight away that dual lift's already in the red. So it's well over 100% capacity. And then they just, yeah, continue doing that. The smoko horn blows and they jump out of the cab and jump under their crane for a sleep with the load hanging, things like
Gosh,
that.
wow.
Other guys having portable welders on forklifts going and wiring in themselves and then unwiring. So having a DB board that's exposed to the atmosphere. Yeah, very, very different to how we do it in Australia, but really highlighted how good we have got it.
Yeah, okay. So over your time, like as a cranes and rigging specialist, you would have definitely seen some interesting scenarios, I imagine. Is there anything that sort of sticks out for you as something that's like one of those really memorable moments, or whether that was something that was a good moment or a not so good moment?
Fortunately, touch wood, I never had any incidents or major incidents throughout my career with the cranes and rigging. So I'll go with a good one. Probably one of the highlights was probably Wheatstone when we were doing the LNG storage tanks. So I was part of a venture which was Entrepose, Vinci, and Thiess. So it was a three-way
Mm,
Italian, French, and then Australian Thiess. And we had at the time Australia's largest land-based crane there, 1,600 tonner. And I was sort
wow.
of thrust in there and to be involved with coordinating all those lifts, obviously changing them to suit site conditions and so forth, and probably dealing with Houston directly on some of those things there, being Bechtel and Houston and their head office was probably a bit of a highlight there. And then to be awarded from Bechtel in Houston with some of their certificates around the crane and rigging side of things as an appointed person was probably a bit of a highlight.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. And so working in the different environments that you've seen in, and particularly going from, you said starting as a stonemason and then moving your way up and then, to a project manager and stuff, you would have worked with a lot of different people in your time. What's sort of and particularly doing a lot of FIFO work as well, in those remote environments. What's sort of some of the things that you've seen in your time that seems to be like a common theme in those environments that happen?
I think a lot of people want to get into, like, they put the money first and they wanted to get into those environments with FIFO and Dido and construction, those sort of things. So the money draws a lot of people in there, but then they don't realize what you actually lose by
Mm,
giving that up, sort of thing. And then there's obviously the family side of things, a lot of relationship breaks down in that FIFO things because we haven't got a real lot of, well, back then we were doing majority 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
mm,
Prior to that was 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sort of things there. So a lot of rage within people there, living in camps, not seeing family as much, relationships breaking down, kids growing up without seeing their parents as much. I
mm,
remember very well when I first started in supervision, and I was late 20s, early 30s on different projects, and I was supervising guys that were sometimes 60, 65 years old, and they would come
mm,
and tell me, and I'd talk to them, asking me how the family is, and they just said, I never see my kids grow up. So that was one big thing that sort of has always stuck with me in that space there in the
mm,
industry. And I've always maintained that that wasn't going to be me. And when I do have conversations with the younger generation coming through, I say the same thing. Have
mm,
an exit plan in that space there, because what works for you now is never not going to work
mm.
for you always unless the industry changes the way that they do things.
And so with that, with the industry changing, what sort of things are you seeing that has changed in the 30 years that you've been in the industry as well?
I think one of the biggest things is generational. Like generationally, we've changed from those our baby boomers as such that we used to do on those 8 weeks on, 6 weeks on,
Mm,
getting down to that 4 weeks on, that 1 week off, and families just got used to that because back then, not my grandparents, they were only a one income family sort of thing. The generation we have now, and dare I say it, but they want to come out of school and they want to step straight into management roles, and if they don't have those management roles, they seem to shy away from those sort of things. So we're sort
mm,
of seeing full circle now that they do want to step into those management roles, but then they go back home and the income isn't there. So now they're coming
mm,
back into those roles there, but they're highly uneducated in that space, or experience is probably a better word for
mm,
stepping into those, but they still want to step into the high roles. So our our experience is being lost by thousands and thousands of hours each and every day as
mm.
we have repeat all these people retiring from the industry because we're putting in so many things that make it harder to do our job, and our older generation can't handle doing it that way because they had so much freedom previously.
Mm. And so what sort of things specifically do you think's making it harder and harder?
Definitely social media connection, all those sort of things. Like as much as it was hard back in the day when you and I would have started, you could only get the one phone call in the camp because you didn't have mobile phones. I see people on that feel like they're missing out on a lot of stuff now because there's so much social media and phone calls. Everyone's got a mobile phone on them these days.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, definitely the rosters are getting harder. Even though they're trying to come back to the 3-in-1s and the 2-in-1s. The well-being side of things isn't being managed as well. Like our
Mm,
generation now isn't as tough as
mm,
the boomer generation because they potentially had it a lot easier when they were younger, and now
mm,
coming into this harder generation, harder area that we've got now, they're struggling in that space. So we're seeing churn a lot more. We're seeing it a lot harder to maintain or attract and maintain people in the construction industry. I'm seeing, and then I don't think the work ethic's there as much either anymore.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And so with that knowledge sharing from, people who've been in the industry, like a fair amount of time to the new people coming through, have you got any ideas of how that knowledge can actually be passed on? Because as you touched on, like that's a lot of knowledge just being lost, really. Have you got any ideas about how you think there might be some opportunity there to be able to pass that knowledge on to the next generation so it isn't lost?
Yeah, look, I see like back in the 50s and 60s, which I wasn't there, but the 70s and 80s, and as we come through, it was
Mm,
very mentor based and driven. Whereas you'd come onto site, they'd go and get their jobs in the pub on the Friday afternoon and they'd say start Monday, you know what I mean? And but it was very you'd get a kick up the behind if you didn't do the right thing, sort of thing. So
yeah.
it was stronger in the industry there. And so they went there, they wanted to be there, they learnt, and they just got that discipline, I guess. Whereas I think it lacks a little bit now. I think we need to go back to a sort of a mentor way that we have. I feel that our corporate trainings now, dare I say it, are KPI box ticking things where it does things for the company there. What I'm seeing in my business is a lot of people lack the people management. So we
Mm,
take them through an apprenticeship. We teach them how to do all their skills of their trade or their profession or their high risk ticket, whichever they're doing, and then we thrust them into a leadership role because we've got
mm,
lack of people, and then they don't have the people management skills because they've never
mm,
been taught that. So then that breeds a toxic culture, I see, because they don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to manage up, and they don't know how to manage down. So they end up choosing managing up because they want to keep their role and they want to keep moving through the ranks. And what
mm,
that does is they start focusing too much on productivity, all the things that their upper management want, and forget about the people that are below them in their team and
mm.
understanding what they want. At the end of the day, they're the gears, they're the ones that make everything happen, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
what I see is one bad team leader or supervisor that's supervising 20 people that compounds that bad culture. And as we said, you need to reward the behavior that you want to see. So essentially doing it that way, you're rewarding the manager because
Mm.
and they'll reward them back for that. So yeah, definitely we need a change in the way that we lead people and the people management.
So you touched on at the beginning about how you've had really good leaders and mentors, and then you're obviously seeing a disconnect now. from the time that you've been in the industry with how leaders are actually, I guess, being set up for success. What's some solutions to be able to help set them up for success better so that they are managing the people better? Because, you and I both know that it is that middle level management who can imprint the people underneath them and make that either a good or a bad experience. So how can we set them up for success to make sure that the imprint they're leaving on the people they're responsible for is a positive experience and not a negative one?
Look, I think the people that we need that are teaching those, they need to be the ones that have had their boots on the ground all the time. We do see the courses or the leadership trainings or the frontline management courses that we've run that are just a theory-based thing that they don't get to test and adjust.
Mm,
So I see that we need to change our training styles and how we walk people through these leadership courses, that we need to allow them to, in real time, have them test and adjust. Like leadership style is one thing that I take my clients through, and I let them understand what their leadership style is, and I let them go out there and then see how the team reacts to them because of their
mm,
leadership style. So for an example, we'll get someone who's new in supervision and they will talk to a 30-year-old veteran in the game, and they will talk to them in a way that seems micromanaging to them. Whereas they
mm,
talk to someone that's green, they'll see them as being mentored and trained on that day. So I try to teach them of different ways of using different leadership styles to different people on their team, and then they allow them to understand how that reflects back to them from their team, whether it's positive or negative, and then
mm,
we test and adjust. So that's where I think that we need people in the industry that can be sought upon, that have their boots on the ground experience, and that can
mm,
actually help them test and adjust and walk through those processes rather than do a 4-day theory-based, classroom-based
mm.
management course and then give you a certificate and say that you're ready to go, because they're not.
Yeah. Well, it's not actually, exactly to your point, that test and adjust. It's not actually being able to, part of teaching is you teach, show, do. So you teach it, you show them, they do it, and
Yeah,
then you can tweak and refine accordingly. But if there's only the teaching part and
yeah,
there's not the showing and the doing, there's two-thirds of the whole equation being missed as well.
exactly.
So,
And like we've spoken about, like having an industry body that companies or departments or the overall government can go to and start extracting some boots on the ground information from many different fields, not
mm,
just office based people that sort of. I mean, I've worked with project managers that have been office based, and we are moving into that place over the last 10, 15 years where we have got those analytical people that are stepping into PM roles. So your
mm,
engineers and those sort of people there that haven't really been on the plate and had to deal with the people management, those sort of things there. Where if you've got a
mm,
trade-based person that have come through the ranks and then they've been taught the people management side of things, they are far better at stepping into that supervisor, superintendent, construction
mm.
manager, foreman roles, and then even into a project manager role because they have that people management skill.
Yeah. So I actually had someone, a friend of mine who's ex-military say that, like when you look at the military, they have their leadership succession planning and that you can't move up to the next rank in leadership unless you've actually gone through training to
Yep,
be able to earn that strive. And that a similar thing should be applied to construction because, to your point, there's all these people just coming in and you've got like a young engineer, and nothing against engineers, of course, but then being put into a project manager's role who
yeah,
aren't actually taught the human skills and how to communicate effectively and how to understand a team's strengths and weaknesses and how to leverage the best out of your people to be able to have a cohesive environment that
yeah.
is conducive for everyone. So you know, is that something that you see might be feasible as well? Like not necessarily military, but a same sort of model that could be applied.
Yeah, I guess accountability comes to mind straight away there. You need to be accountable that you've got those skills and you've been able to walk through those doors, I guess you can say, because yeah, example, project managers that have been, like we said, engineers and nothing against them, they can't stand on the plate and have a chat to at a pre-start and get to a personable level around the people there because they're so analytical. They will talk about the job, how
Mm.
we're going to do the job and those sort of things there. So yes, 100%. I think we do need to take those steps in through layers and understand each and every facet of being a leader. And I think people management is the biggest one.
Mm,
Everyone's a person, you know what I mean? So you can learn those things on the run. Some people do come into those roles with a chip on their shoulder because now they've got a title. That
mm,
needs to be brushed off because they need to understand that they're part of the team and all they're doing is they're the conductor holding the sticks and
mm,
telling the team what music to play, essentially. So,
mm.
yeah, there needs to be some sort of accountability around those sort of things there. Um, and be able to justify why people step into these roles, not just because there's a hole that needs to be filled and there's a manager
Yeah.
above them that needs someone in that place
Yeah.
to help them out with the project, so forth. So
So what would that accountability like in your head and your experience, what would that accountability kind of look like?
I know in my space with the clients I take through, I actually start with themselves, which is leadership styles,
Mm,
communication skills, and then I start working them through team building, time management, performance management, employee development, and I walk
mm,
them through the whole range of things. But I start with themselves so they
mm,
can understand what type of leader they are, the differing ways that they can sort of lead people, the reflection that they get because of the ways that they lead them, the different ways that they manage people through their leadership styles and then I'll walk them through the different ways how then they lead their team sort of thing. So I think it
mm,
definitely needs to be a process where it starts with themselves because as I said, some people that have got that chip on their shoulder, they need to be brought
mm,
back to earth, get rid of the ego and
mm.
understand everyone's there for the same reason. And then start working on themselves to start with, and then work through how to manage people and a team. Um, and then whether it's for mining or construction sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Understand what the
Yeah.
best ways with, you know, I mean, there's legal and compliance, there's change management, there's emotional intelligence, there's conflicts resolution, there's
Yeah.
strategic planning. Like there's so many things in that space there that, as you say, you need to touch every one of those subjects there or modules
Mm,
before you jump. And I think, yeah, we do all need that in a space, not just a 4 day, take your head off, pour the information in and
yeah.
good luck sort of thing. So definitely a structured course in that space there from people that have actually done it so they can help them test and adjust.
And so I know that you've touched on a bit about with what you do with your clients and stuff. So I know that you're actually being one of these leaders and mentors now to be able to share your 30 years experience to help pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah.
So with what you're doing now, like what sort of people are you working with and what sort of results are you getting from the approach that you're taking as well?
I'm sort of staying in around that supervisor frontline management there because it's
Mm,
got the biggest compounding effect on a project
mm,
or site. When you've got one bad leader, like I said earlier, leading it, depending on the ratio of people for the company, but there could be 15 to 20 to 25 people depending on leading hands. But I stay in that frontline management. I actually enjoy supervisor, superintendent roles, probably my favorite role
yeah.
on a project. But once again, I got pushed into higher roles there because there was holes there and I enjoy the pressure for some reason. Um, but definitely in that leading hand, emerging leaders,
Yeah.
supervision, and then supervisors. I walk them through professional development and how that professional development looks is what their superintendent or construction manager does as a role, so they can start. You know, if they're doing reports and different things like that they're compiling, they can put them together and then they can deliver them to their upper line management because then that starts a professional development. So yeah, really around that space with supervisors that are doing public speaking. They've got no clarity in their role. Having clarity in your role breeds confidence. When you've
Mm,
got confidence in your role, your team will follow you more. Right
mm,
or wrong, whatever you say, your team will follow you if
yeah.
you deliver with confidence. So yeah, really into that niche market with supervision, foreman sort of like areas there.
And so with that succession planning, because, like I'm sure in your time you've seen that probably hasn't been done particularly well, where people are just put into positions to fill holes and stuff. But, to be able to enable effective succession planning for that middle level management, because they're the ones who have the biggest impact, because they've actually got to manage up and manage down, but
Yeah.
they're also the filter. So they're sort of filtering, whatever shit is happening up the top, they need to filter that so it doesn't necessarily get to the ground, to affect the people underneath. But that isn't often always done well, of course. But how that succession planning of people moving into that leading hand position, then the supervisor, the superintendent, the construction manager, what's sort of from your time and your experience of what you've seen, what's some good ways to do that well?
I straight away look for good personable skills, how they interact with their team members, because it is really hard. And I had to go through it myself on a project. When yesterday you're sitting in the crib hut eating lunch with your workmates,
Mm.
tomorrow you're wearing the supervisor's hat and you're delivering a pre-start and you're asking those same people who are your mates to
Yeah.
go out, and you're directing them. So you really need someone in that space there, I think, without an ego, so they can understand. And self-awareness is probably one of the biggest things that I like good leaders to have, because if they're
Mm.
not self-aware, they're consistently doing things wrong. They're hard to teach, train,
Mm.
mentor in that space there. So definitely have good personable skills, good communication skills. We can build on them. A lot of them don't have. We're not taught really well to do public speaking,
No.
but through strategic planning and setting yourself up for success, and delivering communication in different ways, and making sure you're touching on all the different learning styles, which
Mm.
is auditory, your visual, yeah, your kinesthetic, and that sort of
Mm.
stuff. I help them walk through that pace there so that they've got confidence. They've got
Mm.
clarity about what they're going to say. They've got confidence. If they're not so good at speaking, I help them to turn that into questions more than delivering it as a speech, so
Yeah.
that it starts building that confidence step up the front. So to answer your question simply, it would be definitely personable skills.
Yeah.
Got definitely a high level of self-awareness, respect amongst the team already goes a long way. If I'm going to step someone up as a leading hand or a supervisor, and then definitely technical skills is a good thing, but I don't put that at the top of the list,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
if what I've found stepping through and being pushed through the ranks rather quickly, coming from a background as a stonemason and then into crane and rigging, is that you need to be resourceful and be resourcefulness. So if you've got those good communication skills and you can be trusted, liked
Mm.
amongst your team and your peers, you can leverage the technical skills of your team around you. And that's what I've
Mm.
done through my career, is really leveraging those technical skills from my leading hands or the team around me, the supervisors, and that sort of stuff there. So technical skills up there, but I think being self-aware and being a good person is the best start for being a good leader, just like a parent would be.
Yeah. Well. And so I'm just going to loop back to the self-awareness because I think that's a really critical one because,
Yeah.
I'm sure in your time and certainly in mine, there's been a lot of people we've dealt with who lack that self-awareness and it does have a huge impact. So, what sort of behaviors do you see from people who don't have great self-awareness?
Back in, I don't know, I'll just never forget it. Back in 2016, I had a construction manager when I was in a supervisor role. As a construction manager, when things weren't going well, I don't know how many helmets he went through on that project. I'm thinking four off the top of my head, but he would walk into the office and smash his helmet down onto desks. He'd walk in, yell, scream. He would be flushed red when things weren't going well, yelling at superintendents and supervisors and that sort of stuff there. And by the end of it, everyone was just pulling away from him and like, nah, we're not doing what he's doing. It's same as a kid. You want to treat a kid bad, and what I mean, and discipline them for stuff they're not doing, sort of thing, or what I mean, you haven't
Mm.
explained it well or communicated well, they're just going to pull away from you and pull back from you. So I think self-awareness in that space, knowing where you're at, knowing situational awareness on top of self-awareness. So if you are going to explode or you are that sort of person in the start of your
Mm.
leadership journey, go and vent somewhere else. Don't
Mm.
do it at a forum, at a pod meeting where everyone's there. Everyone's going to be talking about it to that level of extent. You lose trust and respect from your team. So yeah, I think that was
And
probably the one that sticks.
yeah, and can you see how that kind of feeds into like culture and things like that on a workplace as well, or?
Look, as we said before, like you need to reward the behaviours you want to see. So if you lower your standards that low, everyone
Mm.
else below you sees that that's an acceptable standard, so they will drop themselves to that low. So I've always said to myself that I'll keep my standards higher than my line manager above me, and they will never have to have a hard conversation with me before I have to have one with myself, because my standards are above theirs. So
Mm.
I've always said that to my leaders and supervisors as well. This is our baseline. You don't go below that. You go
Mm.
above that sort of thing. And just remember, the lowest standard that you have, that's the highest standard your team's going to have. So if you
Mm.
accept that being their highest,
Yeah.
have that as your lowest. And
Yeah.
most of the time, once they sort of get that into their mind and go, no, I want them to be above that. Well, you need to raise yours and you need to raise yours. You need to raise yours. And if you do have
Yeah.
that mindset around your lowest standard is your team's highest, I think you'll always have a good team as long as you've got good work ethic. And
Yeah. And there's always a saying that, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept as well. So,
yeah, 100%.
yeah. So you just looping back to what you touched about, some good leaders and mentors that you've had as well. Have you got a standout that you've had in your time, and the reason why they've been a standout for you? Like, why have they been a good leader or mentor for you?
I've got a couple, and the reason I do have a couple is when I started stepping into leadership roles, instead of looking for the larger pay packets or salaries, I followed them. So
Yeah.
like in the Barrow Island area that we were talking about, and getting offered big pay packets to go over there, I sort of shied away from them, and I stayed with leaders and upper management that I knew, like, and trusted, because I knew that the value I got from them long term would far outweigh the dollars that were going to be in the bank account. So
Mm.
to put some names to them, John Roberts, which we both
Yeah.
know. John Roberts is a really good leader from mine because he's got good self-awareness, good situational awareness, an absolutely epic human, and he
Yeah.
can deliver hard conversations respectfully to teams and
Mm.
crews. He has the trust and respect from a lot of people, so people
Mm.
naturally do what they need to do, and they go above and beyond what they're expected to do because they're a good leader.
Mm.
So yeah, there's multiple good leaders that I have around, but to name one that we both know would
Yeah.
be Roberts. He's definitely up there.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I'd
Yeah.
follow him to the end of the earth.
But they're the traits that I see as a good leader.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. I'd do anything for the guy because like, and trust him, and you respect him. He's built that, and he just does that naturally
Yeah.
with the way he
Yeah.
carries himself. So um, definitely a lot of bad ones, but yeah, definitely some good ones. I have been saying that I have had some bad leaders there, and from what I take away from them is what not to do. So as much as I've been under bad leaders for a little while, I've sort of learnt from them and understood the hand that I've been dealt, and stayed there in the course, and understood what not to do, because I could see what happens to
Mm.
other leaders around them that they manage. So say a superintendent, for example, that I had as a supervisor, all the supervisors were sort of detracting from him. They had to consistently go and ask him for uh, productivity updates. They had to ask him for what's going on here. Whereas you got someone that we spoke of, like John Roberts or someone, everyone comes to them with the information. Their job gets so
Mm.
much easier
Mm.
because everyone wants to come and, right, we've done this, because they reward the behavior they want to see. Whereas a
Yeah.
bad leader won't.
Yeah.
To me, it's pretty simple, but 20 odd years more of doing it.
So it comes back to recognizing good behaviors and rewarding it. Like it's a simple formula, and it actually helps shift the thing where people are actually a lot more proactive rather than pulling back, essentially.
Yeah, reactive. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't understand why leaders are like that, because it just makes their role and their job harder. But the old saying, as you say, you don't know what you don't know. And if that's
Yeah.
how they grew up as a child, and that's the sort of household that they had growing up, and it was very reactive and volatile, and that's how they communicated with their parents and siblings and friends, they just
Yeah.
transfer that into their leadership journey. And that's where they think it is, because that's how they got their brother and sister to do something when they were
Yeah.
younger. And that's how they got their mates to do it when they grow up. Now that they're a leader, that's how they get their workforce to do it, is just yell and scream and an overarching, standover tactic sort of thing, that it does work, but it leads to a lot of churn that I've seen.
Mm.
And a lot of people, we all remember bad supervisors or bad leaders,
Mm.
but we also all remember good ones as well. I'd rather be remembered for the good.
And so how can we shift those bad behaviors?
Good question. It comes down to each person, and it depends. Self-development's a big thing, but it's as you know, but it's a
Yeah.
hard thing for people that think that they are where they need to be already, and they're a good leader, sort of thing. So it's hard to you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, I guess, is the best way
Yes.
to put it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely a struggle in that space, but we are losing that generation that was the hard taskmaster as such now.
Mm.
But along with that is we're losing a lot of knowledge and experience
Mm.
as well, sort of thing. And we are bringing in a softer leadership style now of people. But yeah, definitely as we spoke of, there needs to be some sort of industry or body that sort of starts to manage this and steer it in a direction that's holistic for the entirety of the construction and mining industry, and sort of help it. I think there's a movement to be made, and I think we need to make it.
Yeah. And so that, to have like a body that comes together to do that, like what sort of things would you like to see them focus on?
Definitely, from what I've seen with the churn and the change in the generation now is we've definitely got to look at rosters and how those rosters and that sort of stuff look. We need some consistency and continuity through our projects. If we're going to get projects and we're going to have them manned well, we can't have one project here paying a boilermaker $80 an hour and another one over here paying them $40 an hour, sort of thing, because you're just going to have everyone going to the one. We'd
Mm,
rather have the same thing across the board so that everyone's sort of on a bit of a level playing field. We can man more projects around Australia. We're going to be short of people as it is, sort of thing. So we need to be starting to remove these little idiosyncrasies that are hurting us on some projects. You look at
mm,
projects like the Snowy River project at the moment, massive project, big dollars, blowing out on the budget, sort of things, not in a good way still at the moment.
no.
It doesn't matter how much money you throw at things. Some of these projects just don't get any better. It comes down to leadership, having the right people in the right positions,
Mm,
respecting your team and your workforce, and having that team in a what's the word? In a comfortable environment, I guess, and that's pay, that's their living quarters being camped, and then that's
mm,
their travel, and that's their roster, sort of thing. So I've always maintained that if you can have a team member's pay right, their food and their bed right in
mm.
camp, and their travel and accommodation and all that sort of stuff right, I mean, they'll do the rest, sort of
Yeah.
things. It's all around those personal things, I think, that we need to get better at.
And it's those basic needs, isn't it? Like, both of us, you've been FIFO longer than I have, but even my experience and, APLNG, the camp wasn't really warm and inviting. It was more like a prison. So, the grey and the blue.
Yeah.
So, and the barbed wire fence.
Yeah, that's it. I think we get to a point now where we're succumbing to the minority. So, and I'll take like wet mess for instance, like where you can only go and get 4 beers a night. I'm not saying there should be open slathering like that, but we come to this minority where we're reducing those sort of things down. And we've got the BHPs and Rio Tintos now that are removing them now and having dry camps altogether. Not that it's all about alcohol and beer and that sort of stuff there, but we're still pandering to the minority, sort of thing, instead of moving the minority on and then enhancing what the majority wants, sort of thing. I think us as a society, we do that in a lot of areas, not just our industry, sort of thing, but it's the small minority make it bad for the major, sort of thing. And
Mm.
that's just one example in that space there.
And so with the leadership stuff, so you're working with that mid-level managers and stuff, and walk us through, you've sort of touched on a bit through the conversation about what you're doing and stuff, but the leading hands and the supervisors and the superintendents that you're working with and stuff, like what kind of success are you seeing because of this personal development intervention and how that's actually helping them be set up for success as well, and how something like this is much needed in the industry, particularly at that mid-level management.
Well, I think it's because it's very unique and bespoke. So in the background, to give you an idea how I do it, I've got a platform where I've got about 16 modules that go through all those different areas there, as well as mastering your pre-start. So a little bit of stuff more so on public speaking, but I allow my clients to go through that in the background and they watch one each week. What we do then is we transfer that to a one-on-one weekly call and we start working through their immediate fires, put their fires out so we can start building that clarity and confidence in their role. And then we start testing and adjusting each week. So when we work through leadership styles, we'll talk through and understand if they're autocratic or democratic or transformational, all those different leadership styles. And some people have not even heard of that word, let alone understand that it's a thing. So yeah, work through that, understand who they are, and then just having that test and adjust thing. So I'll always record calls like we do and then give them tasks to do at the end of the week. And then we come back and go, how did that go? That was awesome for all the crew, but Joe Blogg wasn't real good with that.
Yeah.
Why? and then we can work through that sort of thing. And then, I mean, like we've got one outside of there, so all right, we need to manage that person there. But on a wholesome, we can keep working them through all those little 1%ers that at the end that we can stack it together and bring them back as a wholesome leader around that personal side of things, because we're building it around trust, respect, accountability, and all those sort of things there. And that's getting your team on board
Mm.
to enhance that communication. So it's definitely helped a lot with, especially with one of my clients that I've got over West. He was in a bit of a bad position there, and now we've got him that he's actually just yesterday had the mine manager ring him up personally and go, "Hey, I've heard these things about you," sort of thing, rah rah. And then they're
Awesome.
coming up to visit, and they're going to go to his house and visit him with his wife. So
Awesome.
yeah, cool. So just seeing the change in those sort of people there that have gone from a real struggle,
Yeah.
lacking confidence and clarity,
Yeah.
to I mean, to starting to stand up a bit taller,
Yeah.
with their shoulders back, and then start to lead. Yeah, that's why I do what I do, because I
Yeah.
believe it's needed. The industry needs to be a bit of change, and people need somewhere to be able to go for it.
And it's that ripple effect because it's not just the effect on them personally, it's how that can extend out to their family, their personal life, the
Yeah.
workforce, and then to get the mine manager call as well because it's
Yeah.
been recognized at that level. So,
Yeah. One thing I did, I had a call with a client a little while ago, and one question I asked them is, tell me what's the one thing that'll stop you from achieving the outcome that you need. And it gets a lot of people thinking. And the last one that I spoke to said, "Oh, my wife and my young child," because I'll step through the leadership ranks, and then they may want to come home, sort of thing. I'm like, good.
yeah, yeah,
So let's put things in place to bolster that. So I always give out a tool now, which is, because I say consistency is a big thing for leadership, because your
yeah,
team, as kids need a routine, your team needs a routine, and they need consistency how you run your team, because then they can start taking the steps in front of you and helping you out, sort of thing. It makes your job easier. So I've got a checklist there, a daily checklist for me. So we go through it, and who on my team needs recognition today? Have I text back home or rang home today?
yeah,
All these sort of things. And then I've got one for my leading hands. Who on my team needs my support today? What things need to happen to make today a success? All these sort of things there that are all purpose-driven things for positive outcomes, so that you start your day, every day is consistent. Your team can always see that you're giving recognition, so you're rewarding the
yes,
behavior that you want to see. And it just builds a holistic team, I feel, and it makes it easy as a leader once you've got everyone on board and that trust, respect, and everyone knows the boundaries.
yes,
You're continually upping your standards. So as you take a step up, your team takes a step up behind you, sort of thing.
yeah. And it's creating a workplace that's psychologically safe as well.
Correct. Yeah, and we all want to go. We all want to go to work and enjoy what we're doing. At the end of the day, like there's a big saying in my FIFO career that people that I work with, I spent more time with them than I
Yeah,
did my family. So
yeah,
essentially, on the rosters that I was doing, I spent 75% of my year with my workmates and
yeah,
25% with my family, sort of thing. So why wouldn't you have an amazing relationship with all those people there?
yeah,
It
yeah.
just baffles me why you wouldn't, sort of thing.
And so, how invested are companies in doing this for their people? Are you seeing that there's some interest, or is it still a little bit of resistance there?
There's a bit of both, and it really comes down to the person that we're talking to. Some people just, like I say before, generationally, people just think, no, you should just get on and learn it, sort of thing. Whereas you
Yeah,
get those project engineers, managers, they're analytical. And they're like, oh yeah, training, mentoring, let's get that happening, sort of thing. It's not really until they start understanding the compounding effect that their
mm,
supervisors and their leadership team can have on their bottom line, essentially, because that's what they're looking at. Project managers or general managers or CEOs, that's what they're looking at, is the bottom line at the end of the day.
mm, mm,
So breaking it down to their leader becoming personable and having good people management skills, and then holistically getting the team together to
mm,
drive productivity,
mm,
safety, um, and more importantly, a good culture.
mm.
That there is what turns the needle for the output, and then obviously the revenue coming in, sort of thing. So
Yeah,
yeah, you just need, some people are harder than others. You just need to understand what their trigger point is in that place there, and what their highest priority is. So some
yeah,
some CEOs and general managers I talk to, they jump on you and like, yep, we need this. This is what I want to do. This is who we're doing it for because that. And then other ones you like got to explain it to it. And
Yeah.
how I do that is by asking them questions about what's the biggest challenges you have. Oh yeah, so how does that affect this? How does that affect this? And they're
Mm,
like, never thought about that. And then
mm,
before you know it, you're like, mate, there's your problem.
yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that there compounds everything up there. So yeah, yeah, it's getting closer and closer because we come through a period of the last probably 10 to 15 years where it's all corporate training and it's all
Yeah.
delivered, it's all death by PowerPoint, as we called it
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
years. So yeah, there's a little bit of resistance, but it's coming back around now, I feel, where people want a mentor or a coach that's actually had their boots on the ground. And when they say that they've had a hard day
Mm,
and this has happened, you can go, yeah, man,
yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
I can relate.
yeah. So
But you're seeing a direct correlation from investing in, some coaching and stuff and, to make people more self-aware and build their clarity, build their confidence, build their communication, all those sort of essential skills, those soft skills. You're seeing the direct correlation from investing in that to how it can actually impact a business and increase productivity, increase bottom line.
yeah, 100%. And we've all worked on projects or job sites where the culture's been really poor and toxic.
Yeah.
And not only does that lead to churn, lack of productivity, and then sometimes safety incidents.
Yes.
I've seen companies that try to throw money hand over fist at those sort of things. So they're trying to reward a good behavior that's not even there. So
Mm.
let's, for an example, we've got people that are earning $2,500 a week on site. We're giving them a $20 voucher or a $50 voucher to go and do something a bit better or follow the safety rules, you know, and sort of thing.
Mm.
It's to me, it's a little bit off.
Yeah.
These people are earning really good money. That there doesn't mean so much to them. To me, it's about building a good culture and having that trust and respect because if you've got the trust and respect as a good leader, they don't want to do the wrong thing. That
Mm.
potentially makes it harder for their leader. They've got to do paperwork. It's going to get them in trouble, all those sort of things. I mean, it's just trust and respect. So there's definitely a massive correlation between having a good culture, having a good leader that has good people management skills, and that can drive that productivity, safety, and yeah, at the end of the day, that's everything that drives the money side of things, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it all comes back to that bottom line. So that's what people are focused on, and especially if you've got shareholders as well. So
Yeah. It's hard to
yeah.
put it's hard to put a dollar figure on how it does correlate to it, but an investment into a one supervisor sort of things, that compounding effect through their team, it's you can't put a number on it. All you know is that it's I mean it's can't go backwards.
Yeah.
So and the areas that I speak to some leaders or management in is it's not just your productivity that it raises the bar in. It's obviously churn. So you haven't got HR constantly doing recruitment. You haven't got constant training happening, whether it's through all your EWPs and all your plant and equipment sort of thing. So
Mm.
you're not having to hire more personnel through your HR side of things or through your HSE or your training sort of thing. So it just expands through so many different areas there when you've got a bad toxic culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like anything, it's that ripple effect, whether it's good or bad. So,
Yeah, correct.
and then the thing is that, if it's a bad culture and then how that can feed into the mental health issues and the suicide rates and things like that as well, because, one thing of how someone speaks to you can be the thing that could make or break someone. So
Tip you over
it
the
could be
edge.
the thing that tips someone over. So,
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we're talking a lot about leadership here, but when you've got a bad toxic culture, that conversation can be going between people in your team that you don't even know about. Uh,
mm,
the good culture in that space there, I mean, you don't usually have that as much sort of thing. So
no,
it's a hidden problem that you don't know about. And you're exactly right. There's so much suicide in the industry there that you don't know about, that someone's either having something going on wrong at home or anything like that.
mm.
And that's that one conversation or comment that just tips them over the edge and they've said, I've just had enough sort of thing. So yeah.
But it can be that one conversation that saves them as well. Like someone just asking, hey, how you going? Is there something I can do to help you? Or,
Yeah. One of my
give you a
previous
hug.
past projects, I stepped up a supervisor on or leading hand supervisor sort of thing, and he went back onto the tools on a project I was on as a superintendent. Then he come back as a supervisor on the next project I was just on, just because there wasn't enough people needed on that job. And he come to me and he said, Mick, there's something I watched you do at the last project there that I'm going to implement on this project. I said, what's that? He goes, when someone comes to you with a problem, you immediately address it.
Yeah. Nice.
And I said, what do you mean? Because I just wanted to get it out of him because he
Yeah.
didn't explain things well. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, if someone comes to you with a payroll issue or a flight issue or something going on at home, you immediately address it and you delegate it to the person that it needs to be. And you tell them that I'm going to come back to you by midday or by close of business.
Yeah.
I'm going to have an answer or a resolution for you. Is that good? Are you happy with that? Yes, I am. All right. And then give them the direction. All right, I need you to go out and do your job today safely. Don't think about this. I've got it. Just go and do your job.
Yeah.
And that's what he learned out of that. And I watched him do that through that project. And he got a lot more interaction with his people. He
Yes.
built a better culture through that, being a bit more personable and understanding that if he dealt with the issues that are in some people's heads,
Yes.
big or small, to them, doesn't matter. It's big to
Yeah.
them. Come and see you about it. Deal with that and send them out to work with a clear mind to go and do their job safely. You can be safe in your mind that everyone's working well out there, safe, and your job is to go and do that. So if it's payroll, go and direct it to the admin. If
Yeah.
it's a safety issue, go and direct it to HSE. Your job as a supervisor or a leader is to start directing those things and delegating so that you're not overloaded. And when things do come to you, you can effectively make decisions on the spot, change management, whatever that is. And you
Yeah.
can, and to me, you need to wipe your plates clean so you can do strategic planning. So I
Yes.
teach my leaders to start planning 10 a.m. the day before for tomorrow. So when they
Yes.
get there, they're not overwhelmed. They know what their plan is. If there's anything around the change management, they've got a pretty solid plan. They just got to tweak a few things and they can roll in tomorrow. I mean, with no
Yes.
time, they're drinking coffee while everyone else is running around printing out their pre-start and wondering why the printer's
Scurrying.
on paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or out of ink or whatever. And the
But
other thing too is to that point, like when someone's dealing with something and you actually kind of say, hey, look, I'll sort this out. You go to work and you do that. I'll sort it out. I'll have an answer to you by this. It's actually a subconscious way of building trust because you're actually helping that person with their issue
yeah,
and they're placing their trust in you to be able to do that. And by you for coming through and fulfilling the promise that you've made to them, like how quickly you can actually build that trust and
yeah,
establish the respect from that individual as well.
yeah. The only problem that comes, it's not a problem, but the thing that comes with that too is the old saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with everyone coming to you,
Everyone.
right, so that's why I say delegate.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
I always teach them that HSE advisors are your resource.
Yes.
Admin's your resource. You know what I mean? Like all the engineers are your resource. You're the conductor. They're all playing the instruments. You use them
Yeah.
as a resource. But you're
Yeah.
right. That is all around wellness. I mean, mental health, all those sort of things where you can take that
Mm.
off someone's plate. And if you got to go back to them in the afternoon with an answer and it's not the right answer or it's not a resolution yet, go back to them and still
Mm.
tell them, hey, I need another day
Mm.
because A, B, C, D. Is that fine?
Mm.
Can you sleep on that? Yeah, that's fine. Can you live with it? Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, and that, yeah, you're exactly right. That builds trust and respect,
Mm.
appreciation, and goes through the industry.
But it comes back to that communication, isn't it? So, like good communication and just keep that constant communication happening because then people know what's going on. So,
Yeah, it's a funny story. I've got a guy that lives in Townsville, a mate of mine that I've worked with over the years. I think I met him about 2009, and he stepped up through the ranks, and I've sort of mentored him a bit in supervision. And he's gone down to a UGL project, west of Gladstone, I think it was that one there. And
okay.
a lot of the team that I had on a previous project went down there, and this lady there, she was one of the Peggies there, and she actually said after he delivered his first or second pre-start, oh, the guy at our last project, he was way better than you at delivering pre-starts and talking to the team.
Yeah.
And he hasn't got an ego, but he's just one of those blokes that he's really funny about stuff. He's just like, oh. And he goes,
Yeah.
oh, his name, oh, Mick Stewart.
Yeah.
Oh. And he'd come back and told me that. I'm like, good, thanks. That's good feedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I didn't deliver pre-starts every day. I made
Yeah.
sure the supervisors did because I was in the superintendent role. But when you did speak, you give everyone all the information, you make everyone feel like they're part of the team. And when I bring the team together for leadership barbecues and that sort of stuff, I would make sure that our project director, project manager, and construction manager, along with myself, cooked the barbecue and cleaned up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The crew came in, they ate, they went
yeah,
and sat in the aircon in the crib room, they finished, and they went back to work, and we cleaned everything up.
yeah.
I didn't like seeing it the other way on projects where
Mm.
management would walk down, grab their burger, have their feed, all the, you know, I mean, all the Peggies and the TAs or labourers, they're always the one that's doing all the work, miss out on their
Yeah,
smoko, all that sort of stuff. And I think those sort of things there build a lot of trust and respect within them as well, whether they can,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes.
And when you are delivering that speech at the end of that barbecue, they're actually listening to you.
Yeah. Because you've just cooked them a burger. So
And you've shown them the respect, so they're going to show it to you. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you as an individual and a leader in your own right, how would you like to be remembered as a leader?
I think I'm working towards that pretty well now, but I want to be known as a considerate leader, I guess, that's diligent, proactive, and just get shit done.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I'm sort of working towards now. That now I want to start looking. Probably the back end of this year is starting traveling to site and doing that field mentoring now, and
Mm.
start to walk the plate with supervisors and leading hands in that, and being able to do real time, you know, conflict or issue management or change management or
Yeah.
strategic planning sort of thing. So I think that'll just make a bigger impact being able to do that. At the moment, I'm just doing online because it's convenient for myself, and then obviously a lot of my clients being in Western Australia. I think I've
Yeah.
done flights to Western Australia over the last 10 years, so
Yeah.
a little bit of a break's good. But yeah,
Yes.
I think that's how it is. I think, yeah, a can-do attitude, a doer, approachable. I think they're the biggest things to be a leader.
And so with the gentleman who you mentioned before, the supervisor who came back and said, like you're the one who does get shit done.
Yeah.
But like that, I'm sure over the time you've had some behaviors that have stood out for you. Like if you look at John Roberts and stuff as an example, what sort of behaviors would you like to be a standout that people remember you by?
I think, like I just said, approachable is one thing, respectful. I think they're all just general human being things.
Yeah.
You should just be to start with. And that's why you become a leader, is because you are a leader in those spaces there. We've all got a personality. We've all got an ego to some extent. You know, we've all either are approachable or not approachable. We don't all have self-awareness or situational awareness. So having all those sort of things there as a good leader. So you're not, I've seen leaders there that speak about other people in front of other people, and these will dress them down, and you know, I mean, all those sort of things are negatives to me. So
Mm.
approachable, trustworthy, are definitely some of the biggest things on my plate.
Yeah, awesome. So have you got any parting comments, thoughts, anything else you'd like to impart as a final closing?
I think there's a big change and movement that needs to be made in the industry,
Mm.
for leaders, around a lot of things around mental health, well-being, diversity, as we spoke of, and those sort of things there. So I think we need to start getting a lot of people on board that actually have an interest and drive about this, and start joining hands and making a bit of a change in this. Because if we don't, we've had 20, 30 years of change now we've got to now. We've got a lot to catch up on. So I
Mm.
think we need to start sharply and start getting some movements made, and finding the right ears
Mm.
to delivering this information to. Because there's people like you and I that are invested in this.
Mm.
Don't do it for financial reasons. We do it because we want to see change, because we've lived those experiences. And if we can be at the end of our journey and we can say we made a change, there's going to
Mm.
be thousands upon thousands of people now that are going to benefit from that.
Mm.
I think we've done our job.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Love it. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time to chat, and it's been an awesome conversation to hear about this space as well. So thank you so much.
Good. You're welcome. It was good fun.
Awesome.
Do it again sometime.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.